Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? The Philadelphia 76ers find a way to win a basketball game without Ben Simmons, and they are now 3-1 in the bubble, although it does seem like they are 0-4 when it comes to the way they actually played, right? I mean, let's be realistic. Somehow, some way, they find a way to win 3 or 4 basketball games, but it just seems miserable. The vibes surrounding the wins don't feel like, hey, this team is ready to go win an NBA title, so you kind of look down on these type of performances. But in this game, I feel like you can tip your cap a bit. And in reality, I'm down when it comes to this squad because the fact that Ben Simmons is out, I don't feel like they're going to be able to make some miraculous run without somebody like Ben. And realistically, I didn't think it was going to happen even with him this season. So it is what it is. But we did learn more about his injury since the last time we spoke, and it does seem like it is a left knee issue with the patella. And I've actually had some experience with the old patella. Back in my hockey prime, I thought I tore my meniscus. So I ended up going to the team doc, and it ended up being a patella issue. But the fact that I thought I tore my meniscus and I could barely walk, well, that's telling you something, right? I mean, that's telling you the type of pain that it causes. Now, I know that they are relating this to what happened to Pat Mahomes. And if you remember, that took a couple weeks before he was able to get back out on the field. I don't know how long it's going to be. I do feel like you won't see him until the postseason. The question to me, at least, the question for me at this point is, when will we see him in the playoffs? Are we going to see him at the start of it? Are we going to see him a couple games into the first round? Do we even have Ben Simmons for the first round? Only time will tell, but we know. We all know. We've been through many injuries before. This is going to be a bumpy road. You're not going to get the proper information. It's going to take a while until you actually learn something. If you do learn something, is it even the right information to begin with? We've seen this plenty of times before, so strap yourself in and get ready for this crazy ride that we are about to get thrown into heading into the playoffs. Before we talk more about this basketball game, this episode of Sports Talk with Broads is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power. And with over 20 years of experience in the solar industry, they are home to your experts in both residential and commercial solar projects. They are dedicated to making sure your project is completed easily and properly using high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. Check out their information. The link to their website and their phone number is in the description. So the Sixers, banged up Ben Simmons. The Magic, they're banged up as well. Aaron Gordon, Isaac, not in the basketball game. Mo Bamba as well, not in the basketball game. And heading into this, I was going to question, just like many others, what Brett Brown was going to do with the lineup. Was he going to put Al Horford in the lineup, or would he move Tobias Harris to the 4 and then slide in someone in the 3 spot? I thought maybe that would be Glenn Robinson III, but he is still out. Now you're seeing what Alec Burks can provide, or Matisse Thybulle can slide in there. And just because someone starts in the rotation and starts in the starting 5, it doesn't necessarily mean that that one individual's minutes can't be a lot smaller than the rest of the starters. So with that being said, sliding someone in there, it doesn't mean that specific player has to play 35 minutes like the other starters are. So I thought an option would be maybe move Tobias and then slide someone into the starting rotation, but you give some different looks here. At this point, I mean, you have to. And I was under the impression that giving Al Horford an opportunity would be a smart thing to do. The reason why the 76ers struggled early in the season when Al Horford was in the lineup was because the spacing on the floor was so whacked with Ben Simmons playing traditional point guard and having Joel Embiid and Al Horford, and the combination of the 3 was a dumpster fire. Joel Embiid and Al Horford on the floor together, that was something that could find ways to execute offensively. Those 2 players could find a way on the floor to provide spark for the team. It just couldn't be all 3 of them together. And with that being said, I thought that was on full display against the Magic. I thought Al Horford played a tremendous game. early, they kept feeding him the basketball, and he was able to go to work due to the matchup. He was playing his role and playing his role tremendously. And that's why I always question him, because to me, he didn't just fall off, all right? I get that as you get older in this league and as you age, you do lose a step, okay? You don't stay great. Eventually, you find a way to go in the wrong direction. It's just reality. It happens to all players. But with Al Horford, I don't think he's at the part of his career where he goes from very reasonable player with a big-time role for the Boston Celtics to minus 26 in 23 minutes for the Sixers. And that's the outlier so far in the bubble when it comes to Al Horford. That one game against the Indiana Pacers, that's the outlier. The rest of the performances, the 3 games, it's been really solid for Al Horford. And I thought he did a hell of a job giving this basketball team 21-9 and providing energy for this team and doing all the little things right. Now, it wasn't a beautiful game by any means. There were times where it got ugly, but that second half, the mentality switched, and Al Horford praised Joel Embiid in that second half for that mindset because it wasn't his best game early on. And Vucevic, he gives him a tough night. I mean, Vucevic does give Joel Embiid a tough night. There's always a handful of guys that have certain players' numbers. It always seems like the Orlando Magic is a tough matchup for this Sixers squad. Maybe it's the presence of Markelle Fultz. I don't know. But there's always some teams that give squads a tougher time than they should. And the Orlando Magic is that team. And Vucevic always seems to give Joel Embiid a night. I'm not saying shut him down. It's hard to shut down Joel Embiid. But there's a couple guys that can give him a little bit of some hard work. And Vucevic seems to do that. But Joel Embiid in the second half, he set the mindset. He set the tone. He was going, and he was ready to execute in that second half, and his vibe, his leadership was what helped carry this team over the hump. Not only that, I talked about Al Horford and Alec Burks. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Alec Burks was a walking bucket in this one. He finished with 22 points. Alec Burks is and they talked about this on the broadcast, your microwave guy. Your guy who can just come off the bench and give you some points and work your way out of certain possessions that look a little ugly because he's not afraid to just pop it. And he'll take a lot of shots. And in this night, he was absolutely on. And hopefully this shows Brett Brown that he deserves to get some run in these games. Now, I don't expect him to be this type of player consistently. Microwave-type players off the bench, unless your name is Lou Will, those type of players, they have great games, and then they're going to have some duds where they're a little slow and they're not knocking down all their shots. So I don't expect Alec Burks to do this consistently, but he does have the ability to do this, and I do think that he deserves to get legit run off the bench once you get that bench to the right number that you need for postseason play. You're going to have to continue to shrink the bench. And this whole Ben Simmons thing, it just throws everything out of whack because now you got a lot more to juggle around. Now you got to find a way to really make this work. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to absolutely be tough. But I think Alec Burks showed Brett Brown and this coaching staff and this team that, hey, when I'm hot, I'm a walking bucket. We need to score points because at times we struggle offensively. I'm going to have to be in there. And we'll see how the rotations continue to move when it comes to this team. Tobias Harris. He struggled early on shooting the basketball, without a doubt. He finished with 23 points on 21 shots, so obviously it wasn't the most efficient night out of Tobias Harris. But here's the thing that I love out of him. 15 boards. The dude was hustling. The dude was grabbing rebounds. The guy was working on the offensive side of the glass. So you know what? It might have not been his night when it comes to efficiency, but he was still competing. He was still giving it. He was still working, and he was doing everything he possibly could to help out this basketball team. Now, he eventually made some shots. He did struggle early on in the game, but once he started to just keep playing and playing and playing, things became easier for him, and from there he was able to get some buckets. But I love the fact that this dude just casually rebounds. I remember last year when they made the trade and acquired Tobias Harris, I thought to myself, wow, this dude just grabs boards, man. This guy just grabs rebounds. Nonchalantly, casually grabbing all these boards. 15, it's a nice number for the guy. No, someone who confuses me, Josh Richardson. I just don't know what the hell this guy is doing. Some nights he'll give you a 19 and you're like, okay, Jay Rich, that's what you're here for. Some nights he's defending at an elite rate by the perimeter and you say, okay, Jay Rich, that's why you're here. And then other nights he gives you 2 of 12 and he looks so lost and he can't find any rhythm and he doesn't really know what to do at all. Too many times. And don't yell at me that it's the scheme and it's Brett Brown's reason and he's the problem and he is why Josh Richardson stinks here at times. No, Josh Richardson needs to be better. He had shots. Make your shots. He had opportunities. Take advantage of those opportunities. At some point, come on, dude. What are you doing out there? Do you know what you're doing out there? There's a lot of bodies. Ben, Joel, Tobias. Yeah, there's a lot of bodies. So guess what? That might limit your chances. You got 12 shots off in this game. You're telling me you can only hit 2? I can't buy that. I can't support that. And there's no way that the defense has anything to do other than your work ethic. When Ben Simmons was getting torched before his injury, it bothered me because defense is about will. And if you the individual, you the player, if you don't have the will to defend, I don't give a damn what scheme you're running. That's on you. And at times, Josh Richardson looks not engaged defensively. What stood out to me more in this game, though, is the offensive struggles. That stood out to me more. But it has been noticeable at times that perimeter play hasn't been as strong as it needs to be from a player like Josh Richardson. Shake Milton, 8 assists, wasn't very active when it came to shooting the ball. I believe he only finished with 5 shots. 8 assists is a good number. I thought sometimes, though, a little lazy with the passing. And I don't know how natural of a point guard he is. I'm not saying he's a horrendous-looking point guard. He's way better than Josh Richardson with the ball in his hands. That's just a mess. Josh Richardson can never actually have the ball in his hands to run the floor. I can't stand it. It's actually miserable. I never want to see it again. Shake Milton, he does look like he knows what he's doing more, but some of his passes are lazy. He needs to get a little bit stronger with those passes. He needs to be a little bit more, firm with these passes, more legit with these passes. Put a little bit more oomph into them and look like you know where you want to go with them and do it with a purpose, right? Make some of these passes with a purpose and not so nonchalant. Hopefully that comes with playing the position more and continuing to do it game after game after game to the fact that it just happens naturally. Tough 3-point shooting for both teams. Mike Scott got some run, which I thought was interesting because he's been banged up. And now with Ben Simmons, who's technically a power forward at this point, got hurt, does that open up the door now for Mike Scott to play? Because before the Ben Simmons injury, I thought Mike Scott was out. He's been poor. He hasn't had a good season to this point. I'm sorry. You got to limit that bench to about 8 players. Mike Scott was not making my 8 players. He just flat out wasn't. Is the door now open? Well, he's missed some of these exhibition games. It's not like he was fantastic this season. It's an interesting question. So many question marks at this point because the injury and not knowing the rotation, and we're how many games away from the playoffs? And we're still asking these questions. Who's in the rotation? Who's in the rotation? Some of that's Brett's fault, and some of that goes to the fact that you don't know if you're going to have your starting player in Ben Simmons, and how are you going to fix this? At this point, it makes sense that Al Horford's going to continue to play in that spot because he had such a successful night. But some nights, maybe it's not that successful, and do you question moving Tobias Harris down and adding somebody else in? But my point is, if you're making those type of decisions at this point, and once again, some of that is on Brett Brown, and some of that is just, hey, you got handed a really terrible hand. You were dealt an awful hand. Ben Simmons gets hurt this late. What are you supposed to do? Well, you're going to have to adjust on the fly this late. But if your scenarios right now is, questioning Al Horford back in the rotation or throwing a whole new starting five together and throwing a bench player into that 3 position. That's a problem. That's a problem. While other teams are rolling, having their set lineups for a while now. Part of it goes on the injury, though. Part of it does go on Brett for not knowing. How about Markelle Fultz out there? Oh, I can't stand looking at him. Can't stand looking at him. Can't stand his shot. I have PTSD when I see that shot, when I see that hitch of the shoulder when he takes a 3-point attempt. It's still the same. He finished 4 of 12 in 22 minutes. He finds ways to score some points. They do the same thing with him, though. He just works around that screen and tries to find that mid-range area that makes him feel comfortable. Is Markelle Fultz going to be ran out of the league? No. But for what the Sixers gave up to get him, yeah, it's a legit dumpster fire what he's doing. To be the first overall pick and to flop picks with the Celtics and give up another pick, for you to be a 22-minute off-the-bench guy with 13, 14 type of points, yeah, it's disappointing. Now, you could argue he might score more points if he had more minutes, but it's not like he's very efficient. You know me, though. I'm all about players growing. I'm all about players learning. With Markelle Fultz, I don't know what to tell you. A guy just forgot how to shoot. Is that different than how I feel about Ben Simmons, who is afraid to shoot, but you're seeing slowly the addition to his game? Is that a different scenario? I think it is, but maybe I'm a little biased. I don't know. I just can't stand Markelle Fultz, all right? I can't stand it. I didn't believe anything that happened. The whole shoulder injury. Yeah, no one forgets all the garbage that went down. Remember, he was trying to find a doctor, but it was a holiday, so no doctors were available? I'm sorry, dude, what? You're the first pick in the NBA draft, and you have an issue, and you can't find a doctor because it's a holiday weekend? My ass. My ass. That was full of crap. His team, and when I say his team, I'm talking about his crew that he was surrounded by, they were not properly addressing the situation like they should have. It was a mess on both sides when it came to that problem, and I just can't believe anything that was said when it came to Markelle Fultz and, oh, it's the shoulder. No, it was the yips, all right? It was the yips. Too much pressure involved. Philadelphia, high stakes. You're coming in to a fan base that's very toxic, if you didn't realize, and they had so much hope to make a playoff run. Not even realistic playoff hope because these players are so damn young, and he couldn't handle it. He had the yips. I believe it was the right move to get rid of him, but the dude had the yips, all right? Moral of the story, the dude has the yips. I can't stand looking at him. How about James Ennis giving you, 14 points? At one point, he kept attacking Furkan Korkmaz, and I'm cracking up to myself. He kept attacking Furkan. James Ennis attacking Furkan because he could get whatever he wanted off the guy. Now, Furkan had the big block. And there goes my mentions. Oh, look at him. Look at him. I got a bunch of text, too. Look at Furky. Yeah. Okay. Should I bring up the highlight reel of how many times he gets waxed? I don't think I have enough data storage on my damn phone for that. Nice block. Sure. I don't think it means much in the long run, though. Post-game. Sixers Twitter put out a video of the bell ringer, which was Alec Burks. And before that, they had a conversation about holding Terrence Ross to a really bad shooting night. And you had Brett Brown give praise to the players. And I believe it was Tobias said, hey, Furkan guarded him too, And Brett Brown said, oh, yeah, I forgot. It's hilarious. Furkan, defense, coach forgets. Yeah, probably because he was like, what the hell? And then let it go. Forgot about Furkan's block. You know why? Because he knows just like me. That doesn't mean a damn thing. But I digress. Matisse, great defense. 2 steals, blocks, doing his thing. Looks like that rookie wall that was hit. Are we starting to turn the corner? Are we starting to get back to what we needed? He needed a little bit of a rest, just like veterans need some rest sometimes. The rookie walls, those type of players, they need rest. How about it? Love it. Looks like he's getting back. And in the long run here, this is how I feel. Ben Simmons is hurt. I don't expect him to see him again. And I don't think that this team has a legit shot at doing anything. Joel Embiid does look to be more assertive. He does look to be a bit more in command, scoring some buckets, yada, yada, yada. The team isn't good enough with Ben Simmons at this point and without Ben Simmons, specifically without Ben Simmons. On 97.3 ESPN, the Sports Bash from 2 to 6 p.m., we had a bunch of different Sixers reporters on throughout the week, and I would ask a question that had to do with just having Joel Embiid. It was a hypothetical. If the Sixers play the Boston Celtics without Ben Simmons, with Joel Embiid, due to the size advantage and not having anybody to really guard him, could the Sixers still win the series? And a few thought yes. A few thought it's going to be super tough, but it's not out the window. I mean, look, in theory, it seems like, oh, well, look at the matchup advantage. But I think they have something strategically ready to go where they're going to let Joel Embiid get his. But because it's the NBA and because teams score three-pointers, they're going to essentially say, hey, I'll consistently give you twos. And from there, they're going to counterattack and do their thing. It'll be interesting to see. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think this team stands a damn chance without Ben Simmons in the mix. And like I said, I wasn't very high on things even when he was here. I turned the switch real quick because, as I mentioned, I thought that they could flip the switch. But once they came back to the bubble, I realized, nope, still the same damn team. So they play Portland next, and Portland's fighting for their lives. So let's see what Damian Lillard can do. TJ Warren's dropping 53. I'll tell you what, for free, I'd be a little concerned. Oh, yeah. He might go off. And that's one big loss with Ben. I know the first couple games in the bubble, it wasn't like he played strong defense. I get it. I acknowledge that. All around, though, I think we can all agree that Ben Simmons is a hell of a defender. And losing him is one big reason why I think this team is going to struggle when games matter. For the rest of these handful of games, honestly, I don't really know what to expect. Is Toronto going to go full out when they play each other? Are the Houston Rockets going to go full out when it's the last game of the 8-game regular season? If everything's lined up properly where they don't really need the game and they're kind of stuck in one position. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to believe here. I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know what to believe when it comes to how hard these teams are treating this and how hard these teams are playing right now. Because you got the Greek Freak and the Milwaukee Bucks sitting in the second half and losing to the Brooklyn Nets. And, it's just, hey, let's get to the playoffs kind of thing. How hard are these teams playing? Well, I think with the 76ers, they should be going all out because at times it's a little ugly. We shouldn't be questioning if Ben Simmons is going all out because it's a regular season game with 5 to go. Normally, I would say yes. Normal regular season, 82 games, no COVID-19. I would agree with, hey, down the stretch, maybe you take a little bit off because you're getting yourself ready. But because of how ugly the Sixers have been, they don't have that type of support. You can't look at their track record and go, okay, you know what, that makes sense. They deserve to play like that this game. No, you don't get any of that. Your track record's been awful. So they don't get the benefit of the doubt. I digress. Sixers beat Orlando. I'm nervous for this future because of Ben Simmons. I don't think you're going to hear much about it for a while. What are they, searching for treatment? Searching for the right options? You ain't going to hear nothing. It's going to be a long time until you get the update. I'd be shocked if you heard something soon. Oh, and by the way, they only allowed 22 points in the fourth quarter. They've been getting abused and abused and abused and abused in the fourth quarter, allowing 40-plus points consistently in the fourth quarter. Now, you can argue some of that's because of the talent on the other side. But look, who did they allow the 43 points in the fourth quarter to? Who did they play? The Washington Wizards? Well, I think there's more talent on the Orlando Magic than the Wizards. So I guess I can be a little bit satisfied, right? Isn't that how this works? Oh, this team is something else. This team will drive you crazy. This team will absolutely be the death of me. I don't know. We'll see. I know it won't be the Flyers. Oh! Good game by Joel in the second half. Set the tone. Good game by Al Horford. Very proud of him. Toby, I think he struggled shooting the ball, but the way that he kind of still played the game with the struggles keeps me intrigued. Alec Burks, no doubt about it, deserves a chance to keep fighting for some minutes. And Josh Richardson, figure it the hell out. How about that? Figure it out. Very inconsistent on both sides of the ball. Got to be better. Remember that this episode is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power. They offer flexible financing solutions such as $0 down when going solar. They also provide water purification systems, backup energy services, battery storage, and more. Visit them online. Their information is in the description. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.